physical games are about to become a problem. Right now, they just exist fine during this generation. And in fact, last generation games also work on this generation. It's kind of nice having that almost just expected backwards compatibility when it gets a little hazy when you go before the PS4 and the Xbox One generation. Look around in the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. Obviously, PlayStation 3 discs don't work on the PS5, and it's kind of spotty still with Xbox 360 games on the Xbox Series. But going forward, as we are seeing the market shift more and more digital, the question does become what happens with physical discs now, say for the PlayStation 5 or even the Xbox Series, when the next generation doesn't have disk drives by default? Well, that seems to be something that these companies are even thinking about, specifically Sony and Microsoft, with one even once again exploring a program that would work to digitize a physical collection. But I have a lot of questions around that. And that's what we're going to go over here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. Now, this we can see is over on Windows Central. It's a report about a few things that are going on within Microsoft currently, specifically the Xbox division, as they're, of course, working towards their Project Helix launch. That I feel like is happening holiday 27. Still kind of questioning where Sony's going to fall on this, if they will end up with a PS6 holiday 27 or if they'll end up sometime in 2028. So we'll just say for now, just to be safe, in the next 2 years or so, this is something that both companies, Sony and Microsoft, will have to at least deal with in some regard. All right. But this we can see from Windows Central. Codename Positron, I think is what we're looking at there. From what we can tell, could be some form of disk to digital entitlement program. The details here are still incredibly scant right now, and investigations are ongoing. It might not be exactly as it seems right now from the details we received. So take this with a huge pinch of salt and a healthy dose of speculation for now. So the idea here seems to be if you have a collection of physical games, you'd be able to turn them into digital entitlements or just having those games digitally in your account's library on, in this case, your Xbox, but maybe something similar for Sony. All right. So this is something we've heard a couple of times now in the past for Microsoft. I remember when they were doing the Xbox One S all digital, the Xbox One SAD. And when that was being discussed and the buildup was happening, there was also this thing that Microsoft was going to do. And I never explored it myself, like go into a Microsoft store if that was actually happening. But the plan was you'd be able to bring a collection of your Xbox One games, and the person at the counter would be able to put those games onto your digital account. So yes, you would digitize these games because if you buy an Xbox One S all digital, your games, your physical games, obviously are not going to work on it. The whole idea of it is that it's just a digital system, which then lived on with the Xbox Series S. But the Xbox Series X at launch did have a disk drive. So it wasn't as necessary technically because there was still an option for a disk drive. But Project Helix, to me, is not going to have a disk drive. And I think most people assume this at this point because, I mean, right now, more than ever, Microsoft, they have been pushing the Xbox Play Anywhere and Game Pass. Both of those completely playing into the idea of just a digital library. Xbox Play Anywhere just checks your account. Maybe you're playing on your ROG Ally or Xbox Ally X, and then you're going to your Xbox Series system, and then you're going to your PC. And it's just a digital version that they check the server to make sure you are entitled, yes, to play it. So having a physical copy of it in your Xbox Series X does not play into that at all because it won't be accessible for your ROG Ally or then your PC. All right. So now, how is this going to work, or how would it work? Because to me, this is still just them trying to kick around ideas. How can we get these physical games to be digitized, to give our customers at least an out? Because if you go from the current generation where maybe people are just buying digital now completely, and it's 95% digital purchases, we'll say, on the Xbox platform, going all the way back through the Xbox One, which is kind of expected to be backwards compatible now at this time, x86, and it kind of lines up with Helix. What do you do for people who have built up a library of games? Do you just say, hey, they'll work if they're digital, but that physical library will not work on this new device, this next generation system? I I think there would be a lot of frustration for people who should be your most plugged in customers then. And that's the thing, not only with Microsoft, but also with Sony. Sony did post their results recently for their last financial quarter, but also their fiscal year. And the last update we had for that financial quarter is that Sony was 85% digital. Now that includes like everything on their storefront. So there are games that are only digital, but really if you look at their audience, it's leaning more and more towards the idea of not buying disc-based media for the PS5. So Sony, seeing this continued trend working in towards digital, yeah, they would also probably think about the PS6, which they're already trying to figure out how they're going to get that within reason for costs when they potentially have to put out an $800 plus system. A way you can subsidize that further is what they did with the PS5 digital, where that is a $400 system, but they know if you buy it, you're basically only buying games from them, so they could subsidize it further, knowing that there is no used game market or rentals or borrowing games. It's like if you want to play something, you are like legitimately just going to Sony for those games in the future where they make up a ton of their money. I mean, a lot of their stuff now more than ever relies completely on third-party sales. They take 30% and they are making money hand over fist, okay? So with that in mind, Sony, yeah, maybe they also think the PS6 is going to be presented as a digital system first and foremost. The thing with Sony is they've shown the ability to come up with a detachable disk drive for the PlayStation 5. So they very well could do that for the PS6, but I don't think the system is going to be designed around that idea. Like I think the core aesthetic of the system will not accommodate like slapping a disk drive on the side with a different shell. I think it'll kind of just be a cable that comes off of maybe the back for a high-speed USB-C or something, and then plug into what it looks like maybe on your PC where you have an external Blu-ray drive or DVD drive for burning discs or what have you. It'll just kind of look like that, kind of out of place, but really just set up for the more I would even say again, the more plugged in, the more enthusiast side of their consumer base who are willing to buy just physical discs, right? And also kind of put up with the inconvenience of it at this point. It's much more convenient for the digital side. And that I think is a big thing that plays into it here. So would Sony do something like this to where you could have disc to digital, as in your entitlements transfer over to a digital library? I don't really know how any of this would actually work in the real world, unless you would just take it to a Best Buy or a Target, maybe not. Like Best Buy has their whole Geek Squad thing going on there. And so people do tend to drop things off and wait or come back later for a repaired system or something. I'm trying to think of how this would work in a retail side, because here's the thing. If you do this, let's say there's a program set up and you can put your disc in a system and then it digitizes it. It attaches it to your digital account and that's it. What happens to that physical disc that you just had? Like, what's stopping you from then going off and selling it to someone, right? Or trading it in at a GameStop, when what most likely would happen is it would attach. So I definitely ran into this with the MIG switch and learned more and more about this. But these games with like the Switch have a specific certificate identifier for each copy of the game, and it's unique. And that's why people were getting banned at the time for the MIG switch, because there were images that were just being dumped online and people were like connecting the internet with it, and it was pretty obvious that there were multiple copies of the same game being accessed and then phoning home for Nintendo. So I would assume it'd be a similar thing here with Sony and Microsoft reading that off of the disc and then attaching it to your account, which means that disc then would, I assume, be blocked from being able to do it for another account, but you've already then maybe sold it or traded it in. That seems like a major issue, and what would really have to happen, they'd have to remove it from circulation. So yeah, you would have to go to a store, or there'd be some kind of representative where they take your game and, I don't know, discard it, probably destroy it, like field destroy, and then attach it digitally. I guess there could be a mail-in service, but that, again, leads to heavy amounts of inconvenience on the customer side and an insane amount of inconvenience on Sony or Microsoft side. Think about the amount of traffic they would have to manage here with all these different games. It would be probably an entire generation of trying to get this done, of these games constantly circulating in. And I just don't think that's necessarily something that either company wants to deal with for what would end up probably being like 10 years of this service. The thing I think they could do, though, is because you have Xbox Play Anywhere, and for Sony, we assume there's going to be a handheld that, spoiler, won't take a disc. It'll probably just be all digital there too. They can have it so if you have a system, we'll say like the PS6 with the external disk drive plugged in, and you have a disc in there, maybe it can check to make sure the disc is there, and then you'll have a digital copy that will work if it checks that disk drive. All right. So that means that on your handheld, if you have the game downloaded, it would check to make sure it's there and then allow you to play that game on your handheld device. And with Microsoft, allow you to play it on their ROG, Xbox Ally X, or on your PC, but it would have to check probably every time you boot the game up. So that means your system would have to probably be in a rest mode that can then spin the thing. Again, a whole thing there. So physical games, we're going through this transition here pretty soon for the Helix and the PS6. And this is something I really want to keep an eye on to see how either company deals with the idea that, yeah, we're going to leave physical copies behind, even though they should technically work on the new system when it comes to the software side, but not necessarily the delivery or the storage medium of, well, just a Blu-ray disc. So let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comments. Do you think either side, so Microsoft and Sony, should just provide an option? Maybe for Microsoft, it's Windows, so if you get this Blu-ray drive, it would at least read your games. And for Sony, similar thing there, and they sell a proprietary one like they do right now for the PS5, but for the PS6, is that something they have to do going forward, even if maybe they stop offering physical discs for PlayStation 6 or Helix games next generation. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.